What is going on, People Street? And we are back in the building for another top 5 ballers of the week. Guys, make sure you're smashing that like button. Make sure you're sharing this content out, and make sure you subscribe to the damn channel. If you guys are new, this is episode 3 of Ballers of the Week. It's been an eventful week for a lot of football players, and there's been a lot of really good youngsters out there, under 23 players, should I say, really performed this week. We've got some really young ones in here. We've got some who you guys will already know who they are, but we've got some unknown players as well. So it's quite interesting to kind of dive in this week to take a look at some of the players who have really performed in their respective leagues. But without further ado, let's get into it.
Now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
So, people, we are back for another episode of the top 5 under 23 ballers of the week. And as I mentioned before in the intro, it's been an interesting week. It has been an interesting week. This one was a little bit of a tough one, if I'm being totally honest with you. There were a few players I could have added in, for this week. There were players in there that I did actually sit there and think, I don't know, who do I go with? And, all that kind of stuff. But, I've tried to whittle it down, obviously, to 5 players to choose from. And I think I've chosen the right 5, but again, guys, let me know, obviously, in the comment section if there are any players potentially that I missed out on, if there are players you thought who maybe outperformed some of the players that I've obviously chosen, for the week, and stuff like that. But without further ado, let's start off this week. We're going to, we never usually start off here in France, but I think we should actually do that for this week, and that is to start off with Warren Zaire Emery, or Zaire Emery, the French central midfielder. Very good player. 17 years of age, I believe. Potentially soon to be 8 or going to be 18, if he's not already. He's a very good player. If you guys have watched my player watches, I did a player watch on him, just taking a look at his ability and stuff like that. He's a guy who can play defensive midfield, central midfield, attacking midfield. I know during obviously his youth days, he's been known to play out wide. Very quick on the ball. He's probably what we would call a progressive footballer, so to speak. But I watched him in a Champions League game for PSG last season, and he didn't even look out of place. And he was still young. He was still a young 17-year-old. Still. And again, this is a guy who playing in a team, or in a squad, should I say? That had Lionel Messi, that had Kylian Mbappe, Neymar Jr. As well. So to be able to play in and amongst these kind of players, and this season as well, he has played a couple of games, for PSG. So again, PSG obviously going down a kind of different route, so to speak, in terms of the type of players they're looking to sign. The kind of quality that they're putting on the pitch now, obviously in comparison to before, is obviously going to be a lot different. As I mentioned, those 3 names before, with Mbappe, Messi, and Neymar, the last 2 obviously leaving, Mbappe being the only one who's still there. They don't seem to have this kind of star-studded squad that we're so used to, with PSG. And whether that is the right or the wrong thing, ultimately we know what PSG is about. We know what they're actually trying to do. They're trying to become a club, who are going to win, the Champions League and stuff like that. And maybe they just felt that they need to go, in a different route, so to speak. I just think that maybe now, because they've had so many young players, in their squad in a general sense. They've had Kingsley Coman there, Diaby, who's now at Aston Villa, he's been there. Xavi Simons, who, I think he's gone back there he's back there at PSG, but he's out on loan at RB Leipzig at this current moment in time. You know, they've had so many different players. You know, that's just three that I can think of off the top of my head. But they have had so many different youngsters who have just kind of come through the ranks, and then they've had to, you know, go, you know, find football elsewhere and things like that. So it's interesting to see that now they're kind of going down this route, and maybe they feel that this might be the best, you know, route for them. But Warren Emery, you know, I think that, I mean, without putting too much pressure on the kid, I think that he'd probably be one of the top ones on that list. And as I mentioned before, the sheer fact that he's able to kind of, you know, get himself into the team and stuff like that at this current moment in time, I do think it is, you know, quite crazy. But let's take a look as to why I think, you know, he should be put into this week's team of the week. If I just share my screen for you guys here. Let's just zoom in for you guys. Boom, boom, boom. So obviously PSG played against Lens the other day. They won 3-1. Asensio and Kylian Mbappe with 2 goals. And obviously you guys can see Zaire Emery playing there as well. Got himself an assist, you know, in the game. So obviously, if you take a look just quickly before I show you guys the card and everything like that, just a quick look at the stats. Created 2 chances, obviously, in the game. 2 block shots, 63 touches, accurate long balls, you know, clearances, blocks, recoveries, ground jewels. You know, this guy was absolutely everywhere, you know, for PSG. And he played obviously 86 minutes. If I just get up this for you guys here, boom. So yeah, played 86 minutes, got himself 6 recoveries, 7 out of 11 ground jewels, 6 passes into the final third, 63 touches, and he won half of his tackles, which was 2 out of 4. And again, like I mentioned, man, he's a baller, man. He is honestly a baller. Good close ball control. He's got good touches on the ball, good technique as well. He can find that pass when he is playing, you know, further up the pitch. But what I like about him quite a lot, and again, he's only 17 years of age, but what I like about him quite a lot is he seems to have maturity beyond his years. And I think that will ultimately be a blessing for him, you know, in the future if he's able to just continue this. Now, even looking at this PSG team, you know, I mentioned before about the star names that they've had, you know, that they had in there. But even when you look at this team, again, they've got Ousmane Dembele, you know, Asensio, Ugarte, you know, Vitinha, Skriniar, Marquinhos, Hakim, Roma, you know, they've got so many good players anyway in the team. That is, I feel like I'm being a little bit disingenuous by saying they don't have any stars, but you know what I meant by stars in terms of, you know, before they had the Cavani's, the Ibrahimovic's, you know, Lavezzi's, you know, then obviously the Messi's, the Neymar's, and you know, people of that kind of ilk. But I like the way that they're going down. If I'm being 100% honest with you, I do like this way. And in Zaire, you know, they've got a real gem, I think, you know, in this academy, who I think is going to have, hopefully anyway, things just continue. I think he's going to have a decent season. You know, if he can just continue this kind of form, you can see obviously his heat map, you know, playing more in that kind of right central midfield position in a midfield 3. Obviously, Ugarte playing in that kind of DM position in the game. But you can see where he was just everywhere, and he can play in all of these kind of positions because he's good in all phases of play. Defensively, he's quite astute. He knows positionally where he needs to be, and you know, all these kind of things. And again, further up the field, he's got the energy, he's got the work rate. And when he does get into these forward areas, again, he's not just someone who, you know, just gets into these areas and, you know, that doesn't really have a clue or, you know, has to, you know, pass it around. No. He's confident enough to be able to lay off a pass, you know, find that through ball. And obviously in the game against Lens that PSG won, he got himself an assist. So yeah, man, top baller. Definitely, in my opinion, I felt like it was deserved that he would be, you know, in this week's top 5 ballers of the week. And he's definitely a player I think you guys should make sure go and have a look at him. He's only 17 years of age, and again, already in that PSG team, you know, but he's been in and around the team for such a long time. I think he went on tour with them a couple of seasons back, you know, before, maybe even before the beginning of last season, potentially even before that. He went on tour with the team, and you know, everybody respects him. You know, he's a very, very good player, man. Trust me. So I think definitely one for the future. How that future goes, I have no idea, but I just think that for now and the future, he's definitely a player you guys should make sure you have on your list of players. And I don't say that lightly. I really do not say that lightly. So now let's head on over to Let's head on over to Germany to take a look at Victor Boniface, the Bayern Leverkusen striker. Very, very good performance he had this week. Taking a look, obviously, by Leverkusen. Obviously, they played against Borussia Mönchengladbach. If I get the screen, if I know, we'll go straight to the stats. Played against Borussia Mönchengladbach. They obviously won 3-0. Obviously, he played 88 minutes in the game. Got himself 2 goals. 4 out of 8 shots on target. 2 out of 2 accurate long balls. He made 3 recoveries in the game. 1 pass into the final third. 1 out of 2 successful dribbles. And 53 touches in the game. And to be honest, what his kind of performance, it was tricky because it was actually between him and I think I had Javi Simmons for RB Leipzig. I think they won 5-1, in the game. And I thought, should I put Javi in there? Is he the one that I should kind of go with? But I thought, you know what? I feel like, Boniface, and again, when I'm looking at the, the Nigerian strikers at the moment, they are all on fire. They are literally all on fire, man. I think Nigeria seems to have, I don't know, all at the same time as well, which I find, really, really weird, but all at the same time, Nigeria are having, a really, really good, kind of run with some of these players. If I just take this off the screen so you guys can obviously see. Boom, let's zoom in a little bit. And, as I mentioned before, with the 2 goals, he had 11 shots on total, in the game. His passing accuracy was pretty decent at 81%. Expected goals, 1.61. Expected goals on target, 1.96. Really, really good, stats for the game in a general sense. But even just in regards to, how he played and stuff like that, obviously you can see here by Leverkusen, who, by the way, under Xabi Alonso, they really have been playing some real good football. That's something that quite a lot of people have actually noticed, especially since they got in Granit Xhaka, they got Grimaldo in there as well. 2 players that I think are providing that kind of stability, within the squad, especially Granit Xhaka, if I'm being totally honest with you, obviously former Arsenal player. They seem to have quite a decent base, and if they've got someone like a Boniface, hopefully for them, he can keep on scoring the goals, for Bayern Leverkusen this season, and they can, just improve upon what they did last season. Obviously, we can see their Frimpong as well didn't have the best of the game, so to speak, in terms of these guys, in terms of FotMob stats. But again, another really, really good player playing here in a 3-4-2-1 formation. I'm very intrigued to see how Bayern Leverkusen do, this season. I think, as I mentioned before, I think it's going to be a case where, if they can just build upon, what they did last season, I think they can be a real, real force, if I'm being 100% honest with you. Obviously, I know that is quite difficult when you've got Bayern Munich in there as well. Borussia Dortmund, let's see how they obviously, play this season without Jude Bellingham in the side. But it's going to be interesting. And obviously, we can see here with Boniface's heat map during the game, you can see that, this guy, to be honest, he was kind of everywhere, if I'm being totally honest with you. He'd help in the build-up of play at times. He's a good player to be able to hold up play, but he can also run in behind. He's got decent touch, and he has got an array of finishes. His finishes are pretty decent, in the game in itself. I think, as I mentioned, I think they will be a team that you will just have to watch. You'll just have to watch and just, all right, cool. I see where you guys are coming from, blah, 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 and stuff like that. If they can just keep up this kind of momentum, keep up this level of consistency. And I think under Xabi Alonso, the way he's got these guys playing in terms of their build-up play, the possession football that they obviously, like to play. But then when you have then got that striker who can put the ball in the back of the net, obviously we all know it helps massively. So, yeah, as I mentioned before, it is going to be very, very interesting to see, how these guys obviously pan out. But yes, that is my second one, baller of the week. Let's go to Italy. Let's go to Italy and take a look at Ilario Monterisi. I keep butchering this team's name, so I do apologize for anybody who supports this team or watches this league. Frozen one. I'm going to call them the Frozen one. I mean, they were able to freeze up Atalanta in their game at the weekend. They beat Atalanta actually 2-1, which is a very, very good victory against a decent, Atalanta side. If I show you guys here his stats for the game, the centre back, he is only 21 years of age. Got himself a goal in the game in itself. It's an Italian centre back. Good player, very, very good player, quite composed when he's on the ball. He seems to be able to marshal that defense really, really well as well. And he seems to be quite mature, so to speak. Haven't watched too much of him, but watched him at the weekend, and from everything that I saw, he does seem like a decent, defender. Played 90 minutes in the game, 2 out of 2 tackles, 1, 8 clearances, 8 out of 12 aerial duels, 1, 3 out of 3 ground duels, 31 out of 47 passes, 63 touches, and 8 recoveries in the game. All round, he had a really, really good game, and obviously he got himself a goal as well, as they beat Atalanta 2-1. If I just share the screen for you guys here. A lot of players here, I've never seen them play and stuff like that, which is why I love doing this, Baller of the Week stuff, because sometimes you get introduced to a lot of players that you'll be like, who the hell is this guy? Yeah, I mean, and he's so young, and he's playing, so well. Obviously, the passes, chances created as well, created a chance in the game. We mentioned the touches, the shot accuracy. Obviously, that's where he got his goal from. I think it was from a corner, headed it in into the goal, or it got knocked down, and then he put the ball into the back of the net. Headed clearances, he made 5, 1 interception. Clearances, he made 8 in the game. Aerial duels we already done. Listen, I felt like it was an all-round defensive performance from him, and the fact that he did obviously even receive the man of the match, kind of testament, against an Atalanta side who are a very decent side. They got some decent players in there. You got Zapata, jeez, I forgot about him. Lookman, obviously, in there. They got Zabacosta. Jesus, I forgot about Zabacosta. Coop Miners, Kolasinac, jeez, forgot about him too. Ruggeri, playing on the left-hand side, who's a very decent player. Scalvini, one of my favorite players to watch. I was kind of hoping that he would finally win a Ball of the Week, but unfortunately he was on that losing side. But he did play, reasonably well in the game in itself. But Monterisi, I felt like he was the standout performer, in this game, both defensively and in the offensive stage of the game, and obviously helped his team to get a 2-0 lead. And then from there, they were just really resolute in, what they were actually doing, within the game. If I take a quick look at the stats of the game, if we scroll down, boom, boom, boom. Look, you can even see here. I mean, let me zoom in for you guys to be able to see this. Boom. So yeah, you can even see in the stats of the game in itself, Atalanta obviously on the right-hand side, frozen one on the left-hand side at 37% of the ball that they actually had. So they barely even had the ball, which is crazy to even think. Only made 270 accurate passes in the game. Atalanta missed 4 big chances, in their game. But Frozen One did have 13 shots. They did have 13 shots to Atalanta's 18. And I think when I'm looking at that, you can tell that was a back to the wall kind of game. But this is where you need your defenders, obviously most importantly, but this is where you need the team in a general sense to be very, very resolute. And I felt like they were. I really did think that they were. And again, you're coming up against a side who are going to have more of the ball, who are going to have more of the possession, going to be making more of those intricate kind of passes. Can you stay organized? Can you stay compact? Can you stay, just disciplined, in this type of game where you are going to be the underdog, so to speak. You are going to be the underdog, in this kind of game. But they were able to play this game, in my opinion, quite perfectly. So, big themselves up. And obviously, as I mentioned before, big up Monterisi as well. If we take a look, obviously, at his heat map, playing over there in that right centre back role, as I mentioned, look, you can tell his main parts were obviously right next to the goalkeeper. Do you know what I mean? Because again, like I mentioned, they were quite deep in the game pause, and then obviously in that right centre back position as well, and obviously trying to get himself forward with play as well. I think that was quite vitally important for the team to be able to kind of just push themselves up at moments in the game. But he was covering that right centre back area really, really well, in my personal opinion. So that's why I put him in for this week. Let's head on over actually to a player I really, 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 really like. Again, another player who has featured in my player watches. A lot of you already know who this is, and that is Lamine Yamal. I don't even know what to say when it comes to these Barcelona youngsters, because this kid is genius. Played on the right wing, you know, in the game against Villarreal that Barcelona won literally 4-3. 16 years of age. I believe he actually got an assist, obviously, in the game. If you take a look here at his stats, he got an assist in the game in itself, created one chance, got himself 4 shots, all of this in 76 minutes, 3 out of 3 successful dribbles, 34 out of 37 passes, 59 touches, and 1 big chance created in the game. And obviously we know that was with the assist that he got. Yeah, as I mentioned, playing on that right wing position. Again, we know what it's like at Barcelona. We know about the players who obviously come through and stuff like that. You know, the type of individuals that Barcelona kind of produce. Again, he falls into that category alongside the Gavis, the Pedris, in terms of the stylistic way that they want these youngsters to, you know, play the football at Barcelona because that is just embedded in their philosophy. And in my personal opinion, he really, really had a good game. I believe he's actually the youngest assister in La Liga. I believe if it's not La Liga, then it's for Barcelona, but one of the two. But either one is a massive achievement anyway, considering one, the young players who've played in La Liga anyway. But if it's not La Liga, then the young players who've actually played for Barcelona, crazy for you to even be, you know, the youngest. I believe it might even just be Barcelona, because I think Ansu Fati was the one prior to that, but it could be for the whole of La Liga. Obviously, you guys can let me know in the chat or in the comment section below. But as I mentioned before, he is a player I really, really like. Dribbling ability on point, close ball control on point. He can pick out a pass as well. And I think when I watch him play, obviously he's only young. He's only 16 years of age, so he plays with a level of maturity, but you can still see the youthfulness, you know, within his kind of play and stuff like that. Of course, you would do, because he's so young. You know, 4 shots in the game. You know, accurate passes we mentioned before. Expected goals 0.18. Shot accuracy in the game 1 out of 2. Block shots 59 touches. You know, passes into the final third. Crossing needs to probably just work on a little bit better. Accurate long balls. Defensively, you know, 1-on-1 tackles. He made 1 clearance, 1 interception, 3 recoveries. He was only dribbled past 3 times in the game. You know, ground duels 6 out of 10. You know, that he won. He was fouled a couple of times, you know, in the game. And this was a really, really, really good game in La Liga between Villarreal and Barcelona. We can see Barcelona's squad, you know, good new signing in there. Gavi obviously playing as well. He got himself a goal. He dedicated that goal, I believe, to Pedri. I mean, the only thing I look at Barcelona's team really probably is their back line, to be honest. That's where I'd say, so to speak, might be a bit of a weak point for them. If I'm being totally honest with you, I think you can get a better back line than having Alonso and Roberto obviously as your fullbacks, but you know, inevitably that is their team, and they've obviously got to move with it. When you've got Lewandowski, you know, up top, you can obviously get you the goals. That will help massively. But for me, Lamine Yamal, you know, alongside obviously Frankie De Jong, I felt like those two were really, really, really good in the game, and he didn't. You know, Villarreal are a very good team, by the way. You know, I mean, let's spare no bones about them. They are a very, very good team. They can be resolute when they need to be. They can be a difficult team to face, you know, especially at home. You know, that yellow submarine, it can be problematic. A lot of teams have faced issues, you know, when they've played there. And I think that Barcelona did really, really well to kind of grind out a result, you know, in this game. And yeah, as I mentioned, Yamal, you know, he's just a baller, man. I don't even know what else to really even say on this guy. He genuinely is just a baller. The things that he can do, you know, on the ball. This kid, man, he's going to go a long way. He's going to go a long way. Obviously, we thought that about Ansu Fati as well. But again, he picked up that injury and it's just never been the same, you know, for him. I don't even know what he's even doing at this current moment in time. I feel sorry for him, you know, in a sense, but hopefully he'll be able to get himself back up, you know, to a certain level, and then obviously be able to, you know, kind of push on, you know, from there. But Lamine Yamal, he's my La Liga candidate for this week. Again, guys, if there's anybody that I've not mentioned or someone else I probably should have picked, let me know, obviously, in the comment section below. And last but not least, the Premier League one. This one wasn't too difficult to do in terms of the young players. Again, obviously, it's only under 23s. You know, usually I would go for like Haaland or something like that, but he didn't really play that well, even though he did get himself a goal. But I will have to go with Nicolas Jackson, the new signing, coincidentally, from Villarreal. Very good performance as Chelsea obviously won 3-0 against Luton. If you look at his stats for the game, 83 minutes, got himself a goal, 2 out of 2 successful dribbles, shot accuracy 3 out of 3, 5 recoveries in the game, 19 out of 22 passes, 46 touches, and he won 5 out of 8 of his ground duels. He put in a very all-action display. Again, it's only Luton, but at the same time, you can only beat, of course, what's in front of you, and he's a new signing, so this would be absolutely fantastic for him, to be able to get off the mark. But as I mentioned, he is a very all-action type of individual. Obviously, he references Didier Drogba, wearing that number 15 as well, in terms of playing style and things like that. And I can see similarities, and I can understand why people might obviously say that the two players are, would I say, somewhat similar. But for me, obviously, Didier Drogba, absolute beast of a player, but we all remember what Drogba was like in that first season, so to speak. He wasn't necessarily putting up any trees. I'll tell you that for free. He did look like a signing where you were like, ooh, I don't know about Didier Drogba, I don't know about Didier Drogba, but obviously we know what then happened. Chelsea legend, one of the best players, to ever play, in the Premier League. And when we take a look at the game, in itself, if I just slot this up for you guys, boom, boom, boom. Boom. So yeah, again, like I mentioned, it was only Luton, so I'm not going to get too, trigger happy with that. But as I mentioned, you've got to play them twice anyway. They've earned the right to play in this Premier League. It's going to be a difficult season, I do believe, for Luton Town to be able to pick up points. It's going to be interesting to see where they'll be able to pick up points. Maybe at home in certain games, maybe they can try and shore things up, but at the moment it is looking a bit tricky, and it's being a bit of a tough life for Luton in terms of their start to the Premier League. But even just looking at Chelsea's squad, obviously much talked about, signed a lot of players, especially this summer. Obviously Jackson, being one of them. Caicedo obviously in there as well. Gusto, they signed last season, but for this season, Disasi obviously coming in as well. Cole coming back off loan. Sanchez obviously in goal. A lot of new players that Pochettino is obviously trying to implement within his squad, new style, new system, and new everything, new manager, maybe a potential new way at the club, and all these kind of various different things. But I think they needed a striker. Chelsea, for me, that was one of the main things. I'm not saying you don't need the other components. You got Enzo Fernandez there. You got Raheem Sterling, two players I rate a lot. Gusto as well. I think it's a fantastic fullback. Can play left back, can play right back, and he was very, very close for me to being the player that I was actually going to pick as my Premier League Player of the Week. And to be honest, he was really, really close. But I did want to big up, Nicolas Jackson, because I said, when you're coming into a new club like Chelsea, who, they expect to be challenging somewhat. Maybe not this season. I don't know. You'd have to speak to a Chelsea fan, but they're a club, in terms of in the last 20 years, the most successful Premier League team out there, or the most successful English team in the last 20 years. And I just think that when I'm looking at them, one thing that they were lacking the most was just having a striker, just someone to put the ball in the back of the net. Trying Havertz up top last season, and having your Mason Mounts and people like that in and around, and Raheem Sterling potentially playing as like a false nine, and all these kind of various different things. I just never felt like it really worked, kind of thing. And now they have got that focal point. I'm not saying that they're not still looking for a striker. I'm sure if there was an opportunity to get like a Vlahovic or someone else in, then they probably would think about it. But I think they should just trust in someone like a Nicolas Jackson. I like the way he plays. He's a raw talent, in my opinion. He is still quite a raw talent. But he can run in behind. He can hold up play pretty well. He can play off other players, quite well as well. I think him and Raheem Sterling might potentially form quite a good relationship, moving forward. And I think it's just important for him to get that goal for Chelsea, especially in the Premier League, and then be able to just kind of build on from there. But as I mentioned before, like I said, Gusto in this game probably did outperform him, so to speak. Obviously got himself 2 assists, but I just felt like it was just key, for someone like Nicolas Jackson in this kind of game, even though it is against Luton, to be able to get that goal. But listen, spare no bones, I have to give an honourable mention to Malo Gusto. It says obviously here right midfield, but he is a fullback by trade. He can play left, he can play right, and obviously, as we know, he can obviously play here in this midfield, the wing backy, type of position. And then, yeah, I'll give him the honourable mention. Two successful dribbles in the game. Crossing wasn't really that good. Long balls weren't really that good. Tackles won, interceptions, recoveries. I feel like outside of his assist, he was just okay. But I think that with FOTMob and all these kind of sofa scores and stuff like that, they go based on the stats that they see in the game, not even necessarily with the actual performance. And I felt like Nicolas Jackson's performance in the game warranted me picking him, as the Premier League player of the week. But again, guys, let me know, of course, in the comment section if you think I'm wrong, if you think maybe I should have chosen someone else, if there are any other players, that maybe I should have picked, for this week's top 5 ballers of the week. So let's just quickly run through the players. So obviously we had Warren Emery Zaire, the PSG central midfielder, 17 years of age. Very, very fantastic player. Definitely one for the future. Make sure you guys obviously check him out. Then you've got Victor Boniface, the Bayer Leverkusen Nigerian striker. Got himself 2 goals in the game to help them win 3-0. Fantastic player. Ilario Monterisi, the Italian centre-back, obviously helping the Frozen One to beat Atalanta 2-1. Very, very strong, very, very mature performance, very disciplined in his game. Fantastic player. Maybe this could be one for the future. I'm going to have to look into him, a bit more just to kind of check him out and see, what he can potentially produce. But definitely a fantastic player and deserved, in my opinion, the player of the week in Serie A. And then obviously Lamine Yamal, another Barcelona product. La Masia, they're just producing players like it's a factory over there. Fantastic player playing on that right wing, 16 years of age, good dribbling ability, good close ball control, technique, eye for a pass, dribbling, all of that good stuff, man. I think he's a fantastic player, definitely a player to watch. And then obviously Nicolas Jackson of Chelsea. Another good performance from him. I think he's had good performances actually really throughout the season, to be honest. He just hasn't really got that goal. But now he has obviously got that goal in the Premier League. So hopefully for Chelsea's sake and for his own, he can obviously kick on. But guys, that is this week's top 5 under 23 ballers of the week. Let me know what you guys obviously think about that in the comment section below. Have I missed anybody out? Is there anybody who should have been included? Make sure you guys obviously are tuned in for next week's top 5 ballers of the week. I'm G, and we are outie.